So yes, you will get a copy of the slides and a link to this recording. And the only people featured in the recording will be me and my colleague Jess. And unfortunately, you may be delighted by this, we can't see you and we can't hear you. And we'd love to get your feedback, your reflections, your questions as we go along. So please do use the chat box. And you can use that in two different ways. You can use the chat to share with just the panelists, and that means me and Jess will see it. Or you can use it to share with everyone. And that means the whole number of people in this meeting will see it. And just to reassure you, when Jess is reading out any of your comments, she won't say your name. So hopefully that reassures you that it is completely anonymous for you to be here. If you do get kicked out by any glitch of IT, then please do come back and join us using the same link. And I also need to let you know that subtitles are an option. Live closed caption subtitles are an option, which you should see on your menu bar. I wanted to thank you all very much for joining us, because what we know is that your own self-care and your own well-being can slip way down your to-do list. And we're really grateful you've made the time, because we know you're most definitely worth it. And we are really grateful for all that you do. So let's dive into our topic. If I can get my slides to work. Self-care. So our title is Cultivating Compassion Towards Ourselves and Our Own Well-Being. And that's what we're going to be exploring throughout today, throughout this hour-long session. And our ambition is to provide you with insights, practical tools, and things that could be useful for you in cultivating your compassion towards yourself and your well-being. So hopefully it'll be useful, maybe a little bit thought-provoking, and maybe even, well, you can be the judge of this, but maybe even a little bit fun. So let's introduce ourselves. So my name is Ross McIntosh. I'm the one on the left in this sketch there, and I'm an organizational psychologist, and I specialize in sharing skills from behavioral science and psychology with adults in the workplace and adults beyond the workplace in their whole lives. My mission is to enhance well-being, enhance behavioral flexibility for adults in the world. And I work with a variety of populations, from people in the NHS, a lot of teachers I work with, the civil service, and a random one, and a really interesting one for me, is professional ballet dancers. I work with them too. So Jess, I wonder if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself too.
Hello, I'm Jess. I'm an assistant educational psychologist at Bristol City Council. So I supported Ross with the staff wellbeing webinars and then also here to support with these parent wellbeing webinars. I hope you enjoy the session.
Thank you so much, Jess, and thanks for all your support in developing and piloting and designing this. And that thanks extends to the whole educational psychology team in Bristol. So let's dive in with a couple of questions just to get ourselves into the topic, because you'll all have some opinions or things that pop up in your mind. But what pops up in your mind when you hear the words self-care or self-compassion? Anything that pops up for you? Because I'm just curious as to what that might be, if you're willing to share, and you can do that in the chat box. Anything. I'm interested in the whole variety of responses you might have, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, whatever it might be.
Someone said, be kind to yourself.
Nice, nice. Be kind to yourself. 4 words that are quite easy to say, but I'd suggest it's more difficult to actually do it, because I kind of know how our minds can work and how we can be our own harshest critics in our lives.
Another said, making time for yourself.
Yes, making time for yourself. And one of the key messages I've got for you folks is that time might not be hours at a stretch. It might be a glimpse, a bit of time, a little couple of minutes or 10 minutes of time that you could call your own. And that's okay. I think the small steps are really critical.
Someone else said, give yourself a break.
Nice, nice. Give yourself a break. Heck yeah.
And looking after yourself even from the smallest thing of a small walk.
Beautiful. Someone's on my page already. Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely agree. It's about finding ways we can just pop ourselves a bit higher in our own to-do list and think, well, actually, I can take this time to look after myself a little bit. It might be something small, but you deserve it. And we're going to look at those small ways you could do that a bit later on. My follow-up question is this. What gets in the way of your self-care and your self-compassion? In your life, because I'm not an expert in your life, I have some expertise in sharing this behavioral science, but I don't know what it's like to be you and managing the multiple challenges that you face every day in your lives. So what gets in the way of your self-care and your self-compassion?
Someone said me and my responsibility.
Yes, me
Like,
is one thing, and all those responsibilities you have with multiple challenges and unexpected events that can get in the way.
I was going to say they gave some examples like work and family as well.
Nice. So work, family, you wear lots of different hats, and there can be tensions between doing what's best for you and doing what's best for those various different hats you wear, doing what's best for the family, doing what's best for the work. And that's why you can sometimes slip down your to-do list.
Someone else said children.
Yeah, I hear you.
Someone else said family, friends, job, general life, just making the time.
Yeah, yeah. It's complex. Your lives are so complex in terms of what you juggle every day, those plates we all try and keep spinning. And blimey, if that hasn't been made even more complicated by the matter of a global pandemic, then I don't know what has. So I wanted to say kind of, you've got this, you've got this. You're doing as best you can, and we all are. And sometimes it might not feel that way, but let's work out ways we can build in some kindness and compassion towards ourselves and actually take those small steps towards our own self-care and directing that compassion towards ourselves. So I've got a little poll. I wanted to share with you through the magic of technology. And this poll asks two questions. The first one is, how would you rate your level of kindness to others? And fingers crossed, a little poll will now appear on the screen. Now, let me explain this to you. So how would you rate your level of kindness to others? So on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is the lowest levels of kindness and 10 is you're generally pretty cool and pretty skilled at offering kindness to others at quite a high level. So I'll give you a few moments to do that. I should say it's completely anonymous. So we'll never know who gave which score. It's just my way of checking in with you a bit. Okay. And here we have the results. Let me just have a look at these. So I'm seeing quite high. I'm seeing everyone clustered around. The peak is around an 8. 73% of you said an 8. 9% of you said a 9 and 18% said a 10. Great. I'm so glad you're on this webinar, and hopefully you're directing that kindness towards me and Jess as well. But there's an important point behind this. So I've got a follow-up question, if I may, which is this. And again, this will appear on your screen in a moment. How would you rate your level of kindness to yourself? I'm just curious about this. The same thing applies. 1 is the lowest level to yourself and 10 is the highest level of kindness to yourself. See what you'd rate yourself as. Just give you a few moments to select that number. Thank you for doing this. It really just helps us check in with you. Now look, I get excited by data. Look at this, very different. We've got a quarter of you saying 2. In fact, 5 and below, we've got a fair few of you, actually. I can't do those sums in my head, but, oh, I can, hang on. 83% of you rate your level of kindness to yourself as 5 or below. Very different to the kindness to others. 6% of you give yourselves about an 8%. Sorry, 8% give yourselves a 6. Oof. And 8% give yourself an 8 as well. Just wanted to check in with you and just see if there was a difference. And crikey, there is a difference. It seems from our little survey here that we are far more skilled at offering kindness and compassion to others than we are at being kind and compassionate to ourselves. And that's probably not too surprising. And I'm going to try and explain why. I'm going to try and build a case as to why that is. Because recently I was talking to a bit of a guru in compassion, a chap called Stan Steindl in Australia. And he was talking about nurses. And I just thought I'd use what he told me to share with you and talk about the flows of compassion. Because there are 3 flows of compassion. Imagine this is us, this little creature here, and this group of little 5 other creatures is other people. Okay. So the 3 flows of compassion are compassion for others, a willingness to receive compassion, and self-compassion, that compassionate attitude towards ourselves. And this chap Stan was training some nurses who were about to qualify in Australia, and he measured them on these 3 levels of compassion, these 3 flows of compassion. And what he found was that offering compassion to others, these nurses were higher than the general population in terms of offering compassion to others, which we might expect. It's a particular career, a vocation, you might call it. And probably we'd expect nurses to show compassion to others. But then on the other 2, willingness to receive compassion and compassion for ourselves, these nurses were lower than the general population in these 2 flows, which is quite illuminating, quite astounding, I think, that they're not willing to receive compassion. They're not that skilled or willing to offer compassion to themselves. And he explored this further with them, and they said they were about to qualify. They were very anxious about not doing anything wrong, getting it right all the time, and not really willing to express any vulnerability with each other or their patients or their new colleagues. So they were kind of blocking compassion towards themselves and from others, but also from themselves. So he could work with them on developing this potential to receive compassion and offering ourselves self-compassion. And that's what I want to do with you all on this webinar today. Because I'd hazard a guess, as we've just shown with that poll we did, that it's easier for you out there to offer kindness and compassion to others rather than to be kind and compassionate towards ourselves. So in the next 45 minutes or so, hopefully, I can give you some insights and practical skills to build that self-compassion. So that's what I have in store for you for the rest of this session. So I want to present to you the advantages of compassion. I want to introduce self-compassion and something we call our regulation systems. All will be explained, but it relates to evolution. I want to invite you to join me in a self-compassion exercise and show you how we can take small steps towards self-care. And I'd suggest that maybe bigger than a small step towards self-care is signing up for this webinar, whether you're watching it live with me now or whether you're watching it in the recorded version. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your willingness to explore this with us, because I think hopefully this might be helpful. The advantages of compassion. I wanted to start at an organizational level, and we could think of an organization as a business, and a large organization, a small business, or we could think of it as a family unit. So that's why I'm sharing the advantages of compassion in an organizational setting first. So here's some evidence, folks. And as I say, it's related to organizations, but you could also think about this in terms of a family unit, I'd like to suggest. Employees who believe that their leaders care about their well-being are more satisfied with their jobs and show higher organizational commitment. Compassionate leadership is more likely to generate resilience in stressful times, and leaders who develop others experience lower stress and greater resilience. Experiencing compassion at work connects co-workers psychologically and results in a stronger bond between them. And compassion can be demonstrated through relatively small acts of altruism, kindness, and care. So I thought it was neat just to summarize that, a bit of data for you to hopefully begin to build the case for compassion, that it's not pink, it's not fluffy, it's not always easy to do, but it has real benefits for us in terms of organizations and perhaps even families. Now, I'd like to get some more evidence for the impact of compassion from others. So let's turn to you, because I'd like you to provide that evidence with me, if that's possible. Here goes. I'd like you to reflect on what's it like to be on the receiving end of compassion. So imagine a teacher, coach, manager in your life, whether it's current, whether it's way back when. Someone who was harsh, critical and judgmental. Just have a think about, how did you respond? What did it feel like to have that manager, coach, person in your life? If you're willing to share in the chat box, that will be fabulous, because it just helps us learn a bit from each other, and also just pausing to reflect on it, I think, is a really useful thing. Any reflections from you out there?
Someone said it crushed their confidence.
Yeah.
Someone else said they were unhappy and had to take it out on me.
Crikey, so crushed confidence, unhappy, and I had to take it out on me. So you kind of join in with the criticism, I guess, if I've interpreted that correctly.
Someone else said, I had a long time ago a really harsh manager and it made me feel stressed and I did not want to deal with him.
I think I may have misinterpreted that previous one. The person who was treating you like this was unhappy and had to take out their unhappiness on you. I think I've got that now. Yeah, thank you. And a harsh manager who made you feel stressed, and can just make going to a workplace or going to anywhere where you have to interact with them quite unpleasant. And thank you. Any other stuff in the chat there?
Someone else said it made me feel defensive towards that manager. Trust of that person diminished.
So someone saying, thank you so much for sharing this, folks. Made me feel defensive towards that manager. Trust was diminished. And we don't know what's going on for that person who was being harsh, as somebody was saying, but for us to feel stressed, despondent, thinking less of them, trusting them less, isn't a happy or pleasant or comfortable place to be. So thank you so much for sharing, everybody. So how about scenario B, which you'll not be surprised? Scenario B, and we'll take any remaining comments on scenario A in just a moment, but let's shift our attention to scenario B. Same thing, a teacher, coach, manager in your life, someone who is supportive, encouraging, and kind. How did you respond, and what did that feel like? And maybe while you're typing that, we'll come and catch up with any other bits from scenario A, just while people are typing.
So scenario A, someone else said, not harsh of judgment, but years of lack of positive feedback at work lead to a lack of self-confidence.
That's such an interesting point. So sustained period of lack of positive feedback can just make us feel quite dispirited. So not harsh or judgmental, but just lack of positive feedback, how it can impact on our confidence. Yeah, it sounds very relatable to me.
And then scenario B, makes you smile and ultimately thrive.
I love that. Heck, why wouldn't we want to make other people smile and thrive? They're beautiful words to use. Thank you.
Someone else said, makes you feel happy and safe.
Happy, safe, smile, thrive.
Oh, in reference to someone who had a manager who didn't give any positive feedback, they said that they now have a manager who is constantly giving positive feedback and has changed this.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, folks.
Other people said, makes me want to be even better and makes me want to feel upbeat, happy, boosted, and the positive side, and boosting self-esteem and confidence.
Brilliant stuff. Look at the difference between those two scenarios. Thank you. I think we've had a wonderful selection of contributions there. Sorry if we haven't got round to them all. But yeah, look at the evidence from you folks out there. What's it like to be this on the receiving end of someone who is harsh, critical, and judgmental, as opposed to someone who's supportive, encouraging, or kind? Look at the trust that develops, the self-esteem, the confidence. It's a wonderful thing. And now that I've set that up, I want to give you my definition of self-compassion. So let's have a look at that. Because we've looked at the impact that other people can have on us, but let's have a look at our impact on ourselves. And I always like to start with a definition. So let's go with that first. So self-compassion entails being warm and understanding towards ourselves when we suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than ignoring our pain or flagellating ourselves with self-criticism. And that's from Dr. Kristin Neff, who's a leading global researcher in self-compassion. And I love this little definition because I think how often, don't know about you folks, but how often when I suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, I either try and ignore that, try and go, oh, it isn't happening, or I flagellate myself. I'm really harsh and critical of myself with that self-criticism. So what can we do about this? Well, before we think about what we can do, I just wanted to go back in time a bit. Because there's a reason our minds do this. When we notice that we're perhaps ignoring our pain or flagellating ourselves with self-criticism, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. It's how we're wired as human beings, unfortunately. And it goes way back. It goes way back to when we lived in caves, when we were cave women. So when we lived in caves, our mind had one function. One of our primary functions of our mind was to not get killed. So it might be generating thoughts like, there's danger everywhere. Look out, look out, look out. It was also doing other things, saying, I need more food, more weapons, more tools, because then I can be more successful in my cave. And it was also saying, you need to fit in. You need to feel like you belong and be part of the group, because that's very important. Because if I didn't belong and feel part of the group in my cave, then I might get chucked out of the cave because I just think I'm a bit of a waste of space. And the same thing's going on for us right now in the modern day. Our minds are generating this type of stuff, except our minds are misperceiving threat all the time. They're doing what they're designed to do, but they're misperceiving that threat all the time. They're a bit glitchy, basically. Because the people we've descended from were really cautious and that was good for them. That helped them survive, and we've descended from them. So let's look how that relates to an evolutionary model that can help us understand compassion, and it can reveal the rationale for cultivating a compassionate mind. So, whilst evolution is great to help us survive, great to help us reproduce, it's really good at that, it doesn't bother so much with making us happy. So we have these tricky brains, beautifully designed, and yet they can cause us a lot of suffering. And there's a model which I'm about to present, which we call the 3 circles, or in this case, for my slides, ovals, that represent one of 3 emotional regulation systems. So let's look at them, how they can be activated in the brain, and how we can work towards bringing them into more of a balance. And before I go on, I should say, our brains are obviously vastly more complicated than 3 ovals, but I think this model is really useful to help us get a grip on what's happening, help us notice what our brains are up to. So here we go. So the first emotional regulation system is called the threat system. It's red and it's frightening. It's often known, you probably have heard of this, as the fight or flight response, or the fight, flight, freeze, appease response. And of course, the emotions related to this are things like anger, anxiety, as well as disgust. And it's a really reactive system. And it's designed to be really reactive. When we're facing a threat, we want to act and not waste time thinking about it. In fact, humans much prefer to err on the side of seeing a threat that isn't there than ever missing a threat that is. So I might be working away at my computer, see something out the corner of my eye and think, oh no, a snake in my flat, in the spare bedroom. And then go, oh no, it's just the cables that are bundled up together in that undulating way. This part of our mind is on constant lookout for danger and can create lots of background noise. So we have this threat system that's quick to activate. It's helpful sometimes, but can cause us suffering. If the threat system had its way, we'd just stay safe and warm in the cave. But we can't stay in the cave all the time. We have to go out and get stuff. We have to get food, resources, stuff like that. So we have a second emotional regulation system, and that second emotional regulation system is represented by this blue circle. This is called the drive system. This is about wanting, pursuing, obtaining. It's about motivating us towards resources. It's about the drive to go out and get things we need to survive. And prehistorically, this served us really, really well. But now, in the modern world, it can lead to us keeping accumulating things that we don't really need. And also, it's about seeking excitement, pleasure, achievement, and success. So it's pursuing, achieving, progressing. And we need drive to a certain degree. And sometimes it can mean we become very competitive or act out of self-interest. And sometimes it can mean disappointment or failures, which can take us back to self-criticism or shame and reactivate the threat system. So you see, this is tricky stuff, the way these interact, folks. And these 2 drives of threat, these 2 regulation systems of drive and threat can be uncomfortable bedfellows. Think about a student who really wants to get full marks on their exams, but is afraid they're going to fail. So what happens? They have the cleanest house in Christendom. They're spending all their time vacuuming, dusting, making their house look immaculate, spick and span. And we can sometimes sort of get stuck between that threat and drive. So what's the third circle, I hear you ask? Well, the third circle is this, because humans aren't very big, aren't very strong, and aren't that fast. In fact, we're quite a vulnerable species, but we have each other. And this emotional regulation system is called the soothing affiliative system. It's designed for us to have the ability to soothe, comfort, nurture, and look after each other and feel safe together. It's green, and it's about connection, warmth, and kindness, and those feelings of being safe, protected, and in a trusted environment. Now, being able to notice which of these circles is activated and which might be running the show can be very useful, because we don't want to be rid of any of them. They all play an important role, but sometimes one can be in the driving seat for a sustained period or more than the others. So it's important to work towards finding a balance. And just by knowing that these three systems exist, as you now do know, that can help us reach that greater balance, I would suggest. So just to show they're all connected, there's those arrows. So just take a moment to reflect with me, because what I'd like to invite you to do, folks, is to reflect on which system's been uppermost for you so far today. So I've done this. I'm going to show you on this slide. Let's check in and see how balanced our systems are. So today, I got up early because I've got lots to do, and I've been feeling that my threat system has been in the driving seat quite a lot so far today. My drive system has been pretty high too, getting stuff done, preparing presentations, preparing documents and reports. And what I've noticed is, just by checking in with this three component system, is this, that my soothing system has kind of got a bit distant and small. So that's a signal to me, what could I do to help balance the system? And one thing I did before I came on this call today, in between meetings, is I just did a brief mindfulness practice, just checking in and just kind of resetting my energy and my clock, checking in with now. So I did that, but there are many different ways to do this. And just by perhaps rating our systems out of a score of 1 to 10, it can help us get a handle on what we might need to do next. I wonder if anyone's willing to share where their drives, where their systems are today. Because I was talking about this with a colleague yesterday, and a colleague in Bristol, as it happens, and she said, oh, she was at a social event in someone's garden the other night for first time people had seen each other in ages, and she felt really high on that soothing affiliative system, checking in with colleagues who she hadn't seen for months. But then she noticed the threat system and the drive system popping up. The threat system was, oh, I want to make a good impression with these people. I don't want to do anything silly, so I want to make sure I behave appropriately. And then the drive system was also popping up, saying, I want to appear helpful, insightful. I want to show them that I'm capable of what I'm tasked to do in this team. So I really like that example, because it felt like things were in balance, but there's always a danger that one can tip over. So I wonder whether anyone else has any reflections on your systems and anything you've noticed about which system's been in the driving seat for you today.
Someone said, today I'm very upset with my work as I've lost some files which cannot be restored. This has made me feel angry and tearful, so threat system is quite strong today.
I hear, and thanks so much for sharing that. So files have lost, this is really frustrating. Anger, the threat system is activated. Yeah, I hear you. Thank you.
Someone else said drive and threat. Because they have a new job.
So yeah, that wanting to make a good impression, perhaps understand what's going on in the induction, perhaps with the challenges of doing that maybe partly virtually. Yeah, I hear you. Thank you.
Someone else said mainly the drive system, trying to homeschool, doing the webinar, keep up on work, plan for camping this weekend, etc. Sounds busy.
Wow. Talk about plate spinning, folks. I can't even contemplate that. So thank you for finding the time to join us. I'm really, really grateful.
Someone said drive and threat, trying to organise childcare for the summer holidays, and also booking a holiday and organising house maintenance.
Yeah, so hopefully this might be useful to you as a way to just reflect on what's going on, and hopefully find ways that you can maybe connect with others because part of my soothing affiliative system is connecting with you all on this call, on this webinar. So I'd like to invite you, if you want to, and it is an invitation, you don't have to, but to have a go at another exercise with me that has 4 steps. And here they are. So this is designed to explore that self-compassion, helping us to reflect on why it's so difficult to shine that light of compassion, turn it round and shine it onto ourselves. Why is that such a challenge for us as human beings? Well, partly it's what I've been explaining, but let's have a go at this exercise and see what you think. So you might want a bit of paper to jot stuff down, or you might just want to reflect on this, because this has 4 steps, this exercise, and it's inspired by the work of Dr. Christian Neff. So, step 1, folks. I'd like you to think about a time in your life when a close friend feels really bad. Think about how you would respond to your friend in this situation. And I'm particularly interested here in what you would do, what you would say, and what sort of tone of voice would you use. So I'm just going to leave a pause for you to reflect on that. Just a brief pause, maybe about a minute. But I just want to give you space to think about that. And if you're willing to, either jot it down for yourself, for your own reflection, or if you want to share it with everybody, that would be phenomenal. So whatever you wish, I'll just stop talking for a minute to give you some space to think about that. Okay, so if you are willing to, please do share any of your reflections in the chat box, thinking about how you are with a close friend.
Someone said, depending on the situation, may have to use the breathing technique 864, use a calm tone and listen to them.
So using a breathing technique, love that. A calm tone and listen to them. I love that, because I think listening, really pure listening, is something of a gift for another human being. And we don't often do it, I don't think.
Yeah. Someone else said, listen and give a hug as often I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Listen and give a hug as often I don't know what to say. And blimey, how much have we missed hugs in this pandemic? And yes, I think that can be very important. And I think it's not always important to know what to say. As I say, that act of listening is something of a gift and a real arena, not sure whether that's the right word, that we can provide for that other person. So don't underestimate that. And that tone of warmth and compassion can be really powerful.
Someone else said, listen to the friend, try to understand how they are feeling and try to find distractions and positives, give hugs.
Brilliant, brilliant. What a great group of friends you are out there, folks. Maybe take one more, Jess, if we can.
Yeah, I would be caring and show empathy. I would let them talk and listen well. I would reassure them and tell them I am always here for them no matter what.
Wow. Give me goosebumps. Yes. I'm always here for you no matter what. That's the way we talk to our friends, when our close friends, when they're suffering. So thank you so much. Sorry we didn't get to all the comments, but I want to introduce the next step of this exercise. So here we go. Now think about a time when you feel bad about yourself or are struggling. How do you typically respond to yourself? So again, I'm just going to pause, but write down or just reflect on what you typically do, what you say, and note the tone. So have a go at that, and then we'll come back and hopefully some of you will be willing to share. Okay, folks, any reflections from you that you'd be willing to share? Let's see if go over to Jess, see if there's anything in the chat coming up.
Yeah, someone said, blame myself, feel regret, feel annoyed with myself.
So already hearing a difference: blame, regret, feel annoyed.
Someone else said, plow on, brush away my tears, get on with everything there is to do.
Ooh. Plow on, brush away my tears, get on with everything. Very different to the way we would speak to a friend. Any others there, Jess?
Someone sort of quoted, I think this is sort of the thoughts you think. So get over it. Your problem is not that big of an issue. Other people are in a worse position than you.
Ooh. Yeah, I love the way what that person's done. It sounds like they're sort of relaying to us what's going on in their minds. Get over it. I'm doing it in the voice that I hear in my mind. Your problem's not that big of an issue. Other people are in a worse position than you, so just suck it up, mate, kind of thing. Yeah, so the tone can be quite harsh, unloving. Take a couple more, Jess, if I may.
Someone else said, overanalyze the situation, think what I did wrong to cause it and why can't I fix it?
Yeah, so again, critical, thinking this is yours to sort out, it's your fault, and what can you do to fix it? Yeah.
Someone else said, depends on the situation, but breathing techniques, yoga, small workout, stroll to help release the feeling. Then at night, we'll talk to my husband once the children are asleep.
Thank you. Thank you. So a whole range there. I like that one, the breathing, yoga, a small workout, a stroll, talking to a partner. Great stuff. So let's continue our Thank you so much for sharing, folks. This is phenomenal. So let's have a look at number 3. Yes, heck yes, we noticed a difference. So why was that difference? What factors or fears come into play that lead you to treat yourself and others so differently? So I invite you again just to reflect on that, maybe type into the chat box if you're willing. But well, how would you respond to those questions? I'm guessing that a fair few of you noticed a difference. What comes into play that leads you to treat yourself and others so differently?
Someone said the feeling that others are more important.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your openness and your honesty there. Yeah, we can, like I say, that I know, folks, that you can slip way down your own to-do list, and my job is partly to say, heck, you're worth it. So small steps towards your own kindness and self-care towards yourself is really important.
Someone else said, think that I have to be an adult and manage my feelings, not to burden others.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so thinking that we have to take a particular role in a situation. Yeah. And not to be, oh, I don't want to burden someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another similar comment saying, feeling that I haven't got the support to share the burden, also not wanting to burden others. So sort of similar theme.
Hmm. So we've noticed that difference. Sorry, go on, Jess.
Someone else said, I don't have to put my social face with myself and be honestly brutal.
Ah,
I,
so
so you're,
sorry, go
as
on.
in, I'm assuming they're saying that they're sort of nice to others because they want to be social and nice in that way,
Mm.
whereas to yourself, you don't have that. So you're just really
Yeah,
honest and brutal to yourself, I think.
yeah. I hear you. I hear you, folks. Thank you. So let's just put ourselves into the future. Thank you so much for all these contributions. We're not going to get to them all, but it's great to get them out there. So number 4, just take a moment to reflect. Write down how you think things might change if just entertain this possibility. If you responded to yourself in the same way you typically respond to a close friend when you're suffering. So suspend your disbelief and just reflect on this part of the exercise. Just give you a moment to. And if you want to, you can type directly into the chat.
Someone said, talk with kindness.
Nice. Imagine that if you're talking to yourself in that kind, compassionate voice, giving yourself a virtual hug.
And someone
Love.
else said, life would be a lot less painful.
Hmm. And the thing is, folks, that's a really interesting point because we've developed this way of being with ourselves over many years of existence. So this is about gradually building new habits. So one habit we can notice is which emotional regulation system is in the driving seat. We can reflect on this exercise thinking, well, I notice I'm being quite harsh with myself. So what could I do to talk to myself as I would talk to a very close friend? Any other stuff out there?
Someone else said, I would feel nurtured and supported and more positive and self-assured.
Hmm.
And you feel more relieved. You feel a happy you.
Oh, wow. Love that. I love the way you're expressing this, folks. So this is just shining a light on this is possible. This is possible to respond to yourself as in the same way you typically respond to a close friend. This is possible. It's within our gift. We're just so used to not doing it. So how can we take steps towards responding to ourselves like this? So let me share with you a couple more things because I've said throughout, and you've also said, folks out there, that small steps towards self-care and self-compassion. Well, this is a model called the 5 Ways to Wellbeing, a really important model for us. And I'm not going to go through each one, but you'll get these in the slide pack. And there's also a link to more information about it at the end of the slides. But if you use this as a framework, you can think about things that you can do practically in your life to take small steps towards each of these. So connect, it might be just dropping someone a text saying that you're there. take notice. Remember the simple things that give you joy. So that might be just you're out walking and you notice a tree and you just spend time having a look at that, appreciating the different colors, the textures, perhaps. Or it might be, oh, I'm just going to watch my favorite little comedy video clip or my favorite piece of music. I'm going to spend 5 minutes listening to that today. Simple things that give you joy that we often deprive ourselves of. So I'd really encourage you, and like I said at the beginning, I'm not an expert in being you, but you will know these little ways. So give yourself permission. Give yourselves permission to take small steps towards this self-care. I'd really recommend using this as a guide, because in the hecticness of life, we can lose sight of this, but this is a really practical, evidence-based guide. And I've got one more habit I'd like you to have a look at with me, if you will. And it's this. It's about building new habits. And this is something you can do in the morning. Something you can do when you wake up, rather than reach for the phone or immediately leap up. Just spend literally a few minutes, and it's got 4 stages. So breathing, welcoming yourself to the day, imagining what the day could look like, and then repeating. And at the beginning, we recommend repeating every 3rd morning. But this is designed to start cultivating these new habits because of the repetition, because of the small stages. So let's have a go at it very briefly together. So breathing, that 2 minutes. So try soothing rhythmic breathing. This could be like counting 2 in and 2 out, 2 in and 2 out, whatever number you choose. You might do longer. And then welcome yourself to the day like you would a dear friend. So I would say something like, hey, Ross, welcome to this new day. Maybe even smile and say, we're starting a new day. We know it's going to have challenges in it, and you got this. You're doing your best, mate. And just keep this in mind as you go through your day. We're with you. So it's just using language that might resonate with you. And then imagine, just spend a moment imagining the day, maybe any particular things you've got coming up. And imagine what that day would look like if you're at your compassionate best. Just kind of playing on the internal movie screen of what it might look like if you're at your compassionate best. And then get up. I'd still recommend not reaching for your phone, but then get up and repeat this. And this is really useful and practical technique, I would suggest. And I'd love it if you'd give it a go. And if you do have a go and you want to let me know how that goes, there's my contact details in the slides as well. So it's time for me to have a go at recapping. So what have we done? We've had a look at the advantages of compassion from the perspective of an organization, whether that's a company, a small business, or a family. We've had a look at reflecting on when we've had someone who was harsh and critical, who was our coach or manager, and someone who was encouraging and supportive, knowing the difference there, just reflecting on that. We've had a look at the self-compassion and our regulation systems. We've had a go at that exercise with the 4 steps, thinking about how we'd speak to a close friend, and small steps to self-care using that 5 ways to well-being model. And we finished with what I'm going to call compassion in a duvet. So folks, I want to share those resources for you in a moment. But before we do that, I wonder if you would mind just letting us know what you thought of this session. We're keen to grab any direct feedback in the moment. So in the chat box, as if by magic, hopefully you will find a survey appears, a link to a survey. And if you wouldn't mind following that survey and giving us your feedback, that'd be much appreciated. And then I'll just finish off by sharing with you the resources I've got. Okay. Thank you so much, folks, if you've had a chance to give us a bit of feedback. We do read it all, and it's really valuable to us in terms of our future work. So, got some resources for you. There's some great meditation resources. Quite a few of you mentioned sort of breathing exercises. Well, here's some little exercises you might like to try. And there's some there in the middle there from an app called Buddhify, which I personally quite like. And it's got some free meditations there from them, including exercises for kids, which you might want to share with those kids in your life. There's some great videos about self-compassion there from the Kristen Neff. There is an article on self-compassion for parents, a link to 5 ways to well-being, and there's a recording of a little kind of meditation on self-compassion break from me, which you might find quite useful. You might like to check that out. And I'll explain what People Soup is. People Soup is a podcast. It's my podcast where I talk about issues like this. So you might like to check that out too. So I'd like to finish with a quote. A final thought from Amelia Earhart, who said, "A single act of kindness throws out roots in all directions, and the roots spring up and make new trees." And I'd particularly like you to reflect on that kindness to yourself, folks. I'd really encourage you to think about that as you leave today. And you've also got my contact details. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for your energy, for your insights, your questions, and your reflections. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, but I'm really grateful for your participation. I wish you well for the best of the day. Thank you, Jess, as well. Thanks, folks. Take good care and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
You can stop the recording.